Gamers, it is Monday. Let's get it on with some artifact shenanigans. And I know you look at it and you go, why is the screen messed up? We're going to have some weird, wonky videos for like the next week or so because I did not check how crooked the video was when we did the recording. So I apologize. It might throw you off a little bit, but once you get into it and you see it's really not that bad. It just like looks crooked a little bit. So we're going to start things out. We've got blue-white Affinity versus Hardened Scales. Hardened Scales basically took the crown as the best artifact deck in Modern, taking it from the original Affinity list that was like the go-to artifact deck. And now we're starting to see like which one can hang in 2024 with new tools that the Affinity list gets. Like we've got our Thought Cast creature, we've got our Kappa Cannoneer. Like the blue-white Affinity has a little bit more tools with it. Hardened Scales is that traditional, but you saw we shocked in a breeding pool to start things out, so we immediately have a variation of the way Hardened Scales was running of just the mono green artifacts into the blue green, specifically to help us with one of the best spells that exist out there because of the way that the meta is working. We basically need ways to deal with things like the One Ring and artifact shenanigans, things like that. So it's like, oh, what is the best way to deal with it? Well, what if we sit here and we use a blue spell to be able to do that? So we're going to be, of course, consigned to memory, so we're talking about for those not keeping track. But we've got, of course, our cranial plating, which goes along with the traditional version of Affinity. It gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. We're going to be starting things off with a Soul Cauldron. We're going to be starting things off with a nice little immediate going with the Walking Ballista for 0, and then we're going to be swinging in for damage here. So for those that are tuning in, thanks for watching. I'm glad you guys are checking out the channel. If you aren't subscribed yet, consider subscribing. We're getting closer and closer to that 1,000 mark. So sharing the video with your friends, families, all that good stuff. Let them know we're getting closer. We're going to hit it. I don't know if we're going to hit it before December or before the end of the year. Maybe we'll push. We'll try it. We're at 893 at the time of recording, so we're close. We're getting close. We'll see what happens. So more portable holes coming out here, and I am missing a little bit of the damage because of course that Spire of Industry, in order to get colored mana, you do have to of course pay life to do that. So I might have bunched a little bit of life total. We'll see how much it matters. But one thing to note is like how fancy Charles's Hardened Scale deck is. Like the Masterpiece Walking Ballistas, we've got this sweet breeding pool. It's that unset where it's like the space versions of it. I need to pick some of those up. I still haven't gotten around to it, but that's we'll see. So we're making a construct over here, which of course power and toughness is equal to the number of artifacts. So 1, 2, 3, 4 will become a 5-powered creature as soon as we get that Urza Saga to be able to resolve, finding us our missing artifact here. Lots of options available too, but we kind of track and see what's going. We could be able to go for a Pithing Needle and just shut off Agatha's Soul Cauldron here and just stop the activated abilities of at least that. But looks like we're going to do some ramp action here with a Spring Leaf Jump. Nope, just kidding. Fake out. And again, we saw these little like, oh, what, they took it back, but they played it, right? There was a turn where the Hardened Scales player didn't attack with their creature, right? So we're a little loosey-goosey with it. Yeah, so we do go for the Pithing Needle naming Cauldron there. So that's why it just kind of slides over on top of the pile of the portable holes that are there. So, one nice thing that the Affinity list has over the Hardened Scales list is just the amount of interaction the deck has, where Hardened Scales does have some interaction, but it's a lot more of like, I'm doing my game plan and my lines, and I'm trying to be able to just kill you and have multiple lines that I can go for to kill you very quickly. So we're going to see lots of constructs get created here as the Urza Saga gets to be doing the search effect for our Hardened Scales players. So both players going for the searching, both players going for some constructs, trying to create some threats here. Right now, of course, even though the Pithing Needle has named Agatha's Soul Cauldron, it still counts as an artifact present on the battlefield. So each of those are currently 3 3s, will become 4 4s as soon as the next artifact shows up. So we're going to see what is the choice Pithing Needle, and we're going to name Cranial Plating here. So we just got a pile of stuff down at the bottom of the screen that basically doesn't get to do anything. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 powered creature versus 2 4/4s. So not the position you want to be in, but you know, you at least have some threats on here. You could, of course, double block. You do something like that. We'll see how the Affinity player is going to be responding in this sort of situation. Again, they do have access to blue mana. It gives us access to some draw effects. So we'll see, you know, game one, what's going to end up happening here. We're making a colored man again. All right, so they did just make a note. They're at 15, so I missed the life total. Sorry. One of these days I'll get better at tracking it. Like, I could sit there and like take a picture of the life total stuff, but it doesn't really matter in the end when I have to sit here and edit it up for everybody to be able to watch anyway. So Springleaf Drum's going to come out, and then that helps us reduce the cost because we can use some improvising skills here with our Kappa Cannoneers, that Pithing Needle, some of our you know, other artifacts that basically have gotten their use once they enter the battlefield. We don't need them anymore. We'll just kind of tap them down. Kappa Cannoneer, really good. It has the ward, which is really great, but also whenever you cast an artifact, you go to put a +1 counter on it. It gets unblockable to the end of turn, and when it enters, it automatically gets to have a +1 counter on it. Emery's really nice. We get to see a little bit of, hey, dump some stuff into the graveyard, and then you could be able to tap it and cast an artifact from your graveyard. Not going to be casting anything this turn, but let's swing in for some extra damage. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 total damage there. That's a big swing. So how does the Hardened Scales players respond? What do they got? Ooh, we see an Ink Moth, so that's a line that can just get us to win potentially next turn. Arcbound Ravager again, the Kaladesh special edition version of it, as well as the Kaladesh version of the Wonking Ballista. So yeah, we're building up here. Lots of +1 counter shenanigans. These are now 6/6s. So we can do some blocking against the construct. We can't really do anything about the Kappa Cannoneer here, so we got to make sure it doesn't get too crazy. Right now it's a 5/5. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening.
They need to make a fucking... If they want to do secret layers, give me that.
They're talking about, give me the secret layers of the Ninja Turtles as Kappa Cannoneers. That would be cool. Emery, and we're going to cast another removal spell here, Glass Casket. So this one picks a creature with mana cost 3 or less and exile it until the Glass Casket leaves. So we will be going for the Arcbound Ravager because that's the real like linchpin of a Hardened Scales deck, of being able to manipulate and move the +1 counters around and go for that Pierce strategy that it's so known for. And you know, that's the way to go for it. Where the blue-white Affinity tends to go for a little bit more go wide until we can get up to a Kappa Cannoneer, and then that's when we pivot into that pure style of one creature really being the focus of our damage dealing. Of course, we'll do some sacrificing, putting a counter there. Let's see how else we respond. Oh, another portable hole. This time getting rid of the Pithing Needle, and you might be wondering why. Well, the Pithing Needle was on our Cranial Plating, so let's do some equipping or attaching. All right, equip for 1. Bam. Here it goes for that enough damage to kill it. So boom, that pure style that we talked about did work out great with the Kappa Cannoneer, Cranial Plating for that last little bit to kind of pierce through, kill him off there. So right now, Affinity leading the charge against the battle of who is the best artifact deck. All right, game 2, we get some access to a lot more sideboard cards to kind of help us out and allow us a little bit more flexibility in the game plan. Bobble. So here's the cool thing about the Affinity list. Boom, Bobble, Memnite. Let's dump it. Emery there on turn 1. Looks great. Bobble in like most matchups, you're so used to being like, yep, pop it immediately, get some information, draw some cards, build up towards my delirium or whatever. Where this, it's like, no, you actually care more about keeping Bobble out as long as possible because you get more value. Oh, a Thought Monitor is in the graveyard already. So now it's like, hey, Emery's going to be able to try to cast this next turn. I hope you're ready for that. Soul Cauldron. Nice little double duty. He says, absolutely not. We're not letting you do that right away. We're going to get rid of it. So we'll be able to exile it. No creatures to put that +1 counter on, but Agatha's Soul Cauldron pulling double duty not only for a buff effect for your creatures, but also graveyard hate for your opponent. So worked out really nicely there. So where is our Affinity player going? Getting a nice little artifact land. Again, helping towards our Affinity cause for things like Kappa Cannoneer, Thought Monitors, things like that. Let's cast our Springleaf Drum. Now turning our Memnite into the ability to cast something. Bidoo. Cranial Plating. All right. Urza Saga ticking up to 2. Seiju. Using that to... Yeah, I was like, we must be getting ready for Hardened Scales. There's a Walking Ballista. Going to be for 2 mana. We'll shoot 1. Exile it from the graveyard. And we'll put 2 counters on it because of Hardened Scales. And now we can shoot off and kill off Emery. So we just kind of clear the board really quick. I hate fighting against Walking Ballista. When the Hardened Scales players get Walking Ballista, I just kind of like crumple and go, I have no way of winning this matchup. No matter what is happening, I just feel like I always lose whenever they resolve a Walking Ballista. But there's a Kappa Cannoneer. So again, we talked about that with the baubles being so important of keeping out to reduce the cost and allow us to use that improvised cost. Now we have a 5/5 out there. It's got Ward 4. Keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We'll see. Are we doing another Pithing Needle here on the Cranial Plating and just kind of stop it and set up here? Like, you know, both players are at 20. Ooh, no, we're not. This is... Okay, we're getting the Ozolith here. So when you're fighting against a Hardened Scales players and they're getting Ozolith, they're basically trying to set themselves up to win. All right, this is a great way. They must have an Arcbound Ravager at this point because this setup here, specifically too, that they're not making a construct or doing things like that. They're floating colorless mana. We see it's a Boz. That's going to help with additional modular. Where's the Arcbound? Show me the Arcbound. Hey, there's the Arcbound Ravager. All right, so we're going to get some crazy manipulation here because every one of these creatures has a counter on it, and when those creatures die, counters that are on there are going to go onto the Ozolith. So we're going to see some manipulation very quickly. It's a very math-focused deck. So if you like sitting here and playing with dice and doing this big math plays and understanding the lines that'll get you up there to get these wins, like just watch this little dice manipulation here. It's really cool. All right, exiling it. Yeah, we get... Okay, so we just confirmed, yep, there was an extra modular counter off of Zabaz shenanigans there, but we do exile Arcbound Ravager with our Agatha Soul Cauldron, putting additional counters. Let's continue to sacrifice this. Hey, we're going to, of course, be able to put that 4 that is on the Ozolith on here. Trigger, let's move those. That turns into 5. So what are we at? 6... 12, 13, 14, 15 right now. 16, 17, 18, 19. We could do... So we basically have a 19, 19. So we swing in. Our opponent would go to 1 unless we block. So they could block, but then you just shoot them for 19 there. Yeah, right. So it's like I don't know. I think that's it. That's the turn. That's the craziness of the Hardened Scales deck, that it just can like explode and win out of nowhere like that. Like that turn 3, hey, I killed you. Or was that turn 4? I guess turn 4 maybe. Shadow Spear to start things off. Our Affinity player opening up with just kind of a tap land pass. There is that kind of downside that you have to play tap lands. But so many people are running tap lands anyway with the Surveil lands that it's like, it's not that big of a deal. The benefit of having an artifact land outweighs the downside of having it enter tapped. Oh, speaking of utility lands, here's a sacrifice one for Rexian Tower. Now, I can't quite tell the forest, but with Charles's deck being so fancy and foiled out and special arts for it, I want to know why we're doing that specific forest over any other ones. Like, what is it about that forest? Does anybody notice the forest? Can you tell me what set it's from? Why that forest? Seachrome Coast. I don't know. That art for Seachrome Coast just looks like it would be the black-white one. All right, Concealed Courtyard or something like that. But, hey, Portable Hole. Let's just get rid of the Arcbound Ravager right away. Value 2 or less. Beseju, of course, going to be our land. Hey, Walking Ballista for 1. There's our consign. Now we're getting into the consign battles. So, of course, we just counter target ability or colorless spell. So, Pithing Needle, we're going to get out of the way and name Emery to start it off. Just kind of putting that lockdown. We know how scary that can get. There are crazy effects that we need to worry about. Emery is kind of that safe one. We know there's not one out yet, but just to be efficient with our mana, get more artifacts out. So if we get another Arcbound, we could basically set ourselves up mana-wise for a kill later on. And speaking of Arcbound, there's the Arcbound that we need. So we're kind of building ourselves up. We want to hold off, sacrificing the Pithing Needle as long as possible. We want to be able to, of course, set up like a Hardened Scales or Ozolith, some way to get additional value off it. Now, we did see another consign in hand of the blue-white Affinity player, not choosing to counter the Arcbound, so that might mean we might have another, yep, there it is, another way to remove it and get rid of it, and Portable Hole is that. So we've gotten rid of 2 Arcbounds already. That's awesome. But kind of just land go from our Affinity player. They've gone into the control matchup knowing that the longer the game goes on, as long as they continue to find answers for the things that matter, Arcbound Ravager, Walking Ballista, those are the things that are really scary. We also need to deal with like Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Those are the number priority list, right? Kill those things first. Ozolith can be really scary as well. Zabaz, not really something that we need to worry about. So you want to hold back your removal and stuff for that. Yes, it gets the additional modular, but by itself, it's not as scary, right? All right, is this the turn? Do we start doing stuff? We got 4 mana. 4 mana, 2 artifacts. Let's make a guy, looks like, yeah. Pop it. Go search up. What are we doing here? Pithing Needle. Are we going for the Springleaf Drum? Check the hand again just to get the confirmation. Only 2 cards over on a Hardened Scales player. One of them looked like a Consigned to Memory as well. Oh, that's a pretty nice one. Lava Spur Boots. You get haste, you get +1, and you get ward 1. So just this little bit of added bonus. So if your opponent is trying to sit here and, Beseju destroy your stuff, you at least have that extra ward, so they're going to have to pay more mana than they want to kind of get rid of things. And we still have 1 mana that we are able to go about. And let's see, here's the equip. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total damage here. And we get another tap land and an artifact one. So, little minor details of not playing the land before, getting 1 extra point of damage. In the end, I don't think it matters too much in that point of damage. Unless you lose by 1 point of damage, then it does matter. And then it's like, dang it, you kick yourself over that sequencing stuff. But it's like seeing these types of plays and going through these modes, you kind of get that in mind of going, oh, okay, sequencing does matter in very specific instances, but oftentimes it doesn't. So we do see a Thought Monitor. Technically, we would be losing a life off of this. The Spire of Industry does. I think I correct that later on. So we're going to make a blue mana and Affinity for artifacts. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This costs 1 blue. We're going to draw 2 cards. Thought Monitor, very good. It's a 2/2. Gets us that added value there. So it's not really like our end all. We're going to win through this, but we're going to set ourselves up here. 3 mana. 4, 5, and 6. Looks like a 7 for the Kappa Cannoneer. 1. Yep, there it is. Kappa Cannoneer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we tapped too many. All right. Revitalizing Repass. Put a +1 counter on a creature. It gains indestructible until end of turn. And we have our Shadow Spear on there, so we gain some life off it to just kind of counteract it, which is nice. All right. Breeding Pool, which is nice. We needed that, so we get access to our consign that we have in hand. Let's see. How many artifacts can we cast? How big can we make that Kappa Cannoneer? We basically now have 2 threats, right? We're kind of starting to go a little bit wider, trying to build up for things here. Another Thought Monitor off of it. Yeah, so we get the, of course, trigger, enter the battlefield. We get to put a +1 counter on it. We're okay with the drawing effect. We have the consign. You could go for that, but you're more worried about like another Kappa Cannoneer getting jammed down. You're more worried about like something else that's going to make things more difficult. There's another free Pithing Needle. That's going to get the consign. Pithing Needle, fighting over that makes sense because you have very specific lines that you need to go for in order to try to get a victory. Like if they go Pithing Needle naming Inkmoth Nexus or something like that, you just kind of go, oh, one of my potential lines of winning of just dealing 10 damage compared to like 20 damage is now out the window, and I am even further behind of trying to set stuff up here. But now that's kind of the coast is clear. You've spent your counter spell on Pithing Needle, and now I could be able to get another Kappa Cannoneer out. Turtle Power. Let's go. Here's an 8/8 with unblockable. Sorry, a 9/8. And we are setting our Construct as well. Construct's going to get eaten. We'll gain 3. Go to 9. So essentially we only take 6 off of it, right? Because we were going to take 9, but then we heal for 3. Yeah, so yeah, we have no way to deal with the Kappa Cannoneers now that they're all already out. I don't know. That was kind of the... We got to see very different games in each of this best of 3, right? We got to see kind of the explosiveness of the Hardened Scales. We got to see the controlliness of the blue-white Affinity. All of these lists are really, really cool, and I would love to get this matchup multiple times to see if the results are going to be the same, because we saw if the Hardened Scales gets going, they can just explode out the gate really quickly and kill you before you're able to set up your Kappa Cannoneer stuff, where ripping all those portable holes and stuff really makes it hard for the Hardened Scales player. But hope you guys enjoyed this. Of course, we do have a lot of awesome games coming up. Make sure you're hitting the subscribe, following every Monday and Thursday. We've got our gameplay footage for you guys to be able to enjoy. But that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching, everybody, and I'll see you all next game.